Hello and welcome back to SiGMA TV. Joining me here today is the founder of 2G here to talk all about esports. Sebastian Lager, thanks for being here. How are you?
Good, good. Like
Alright.
as always, another day in esports, full of action, fast-moving industry.
I could imagine. Now, you've been in the industry for 2 decades. You're one of the best, one of the pioneers in the esports. Could you tell us how you got into the industry in the first place?
I consider myself a bit generation 1.5, and that is simply because the generation before me, those people that were founding big companies like ESL and DreamHack, etc., they were at the end of the 90s in an age where they could already be entrepreneurs, while I was still 13, 14, because I was born in 85. So I was young enough to be part of the movement, have the first projects and everything. I was not old enough to, make my own company because I was born in Germany and it's a very parent pressured career way you have to do in that country, which means you have to finish your education. Dropping out of school was not an option. So that's why I'm 1.5. I'm not as old as the real veterans, but I came literally right after. So I started myself in 1999 with organizing LAN parties, which was back then our only way of interconnecting with gamers. You had no online games whatsoever. You had handheld devices like the Nintendo Game Boy. You had the first some decent PCs where the first FPS titles were like really successful, like Unreal Tournament, Quake. The first version of Counter-Strike came out in 1999. And the only way to play against each other and put a competitive layer on gaming was via LAN parties. So I started, and I think my first LAN party was 10 people. And over the years, we scaled this then up to like hundreds of people. And I tried to myself play professionally. I was, in fact, one of the first users of ESL, their platform back then, and tried my own little luck as a professional player. But to put it into concept or into context, back then you played for, at the best, a tap on the shoulder, and maybe in a good case, you played for a mouse or a keyboard. Now, of course, the young people have the luxury to win a lot of money, make careers, have everything from coaches, trainers, even physiotherapists, mental coaches. A lot of things have changed in 20 years. So I took this ride, and I always had esports and gaming as on the side. I studied politics and medicine in my first life, if that makes sense, and I only could sit still until then, roughly 2012, 13, and that's when I turned my back on my first life and went full time into esports, in the sense that all the projects that I had on the side, which were companies in broadcasting, commentating, production, tournament organization, and many other things, it just took so much time that I had to decide one life or the other. And esports was the lucky choice, pretty much. And ever since, I started in corporate esports various projects on the side. I've been a consultant to big brands from La Liga and the Premier League to Alibaba, Ali Sports. I've done this all on the side. And then in 2017, that's when I finally took my turn away from corporate. I hated the fact that I have to work for people, in some cases, not even smarter or better people than me. They only kept my abilities and my knowledge. So I just founded my own company, and ever since, that is the thing. And I don't think I will ever turn to anything else in my lifetime. I structured also my company and my career in the sense that whatever I do now is what I'm gonna do probably for the next 10, 15 years.
Enough said. I love your mindset and the structure that you've built for your life and career. Truly inspiring. Now, what is 2G Nation?
Okay, TwoGNation as a company is built as a holding structure. It was, as it founded in 2017. It has essentially three parts, which I can quickly summarize. One is a B2B part. That's where I summarize my experience of the last 20 years. And I help people in consulting and advisory projects, marketing things, things like events. We have done small events like just an invitation of teams online to 6 to 10 to 12,000 people in an arena, and the entire thing in around that. So these are all the B2B services. Mostly I spend my time with brands that want to come freshly into esports and look for a very straightforward approach. There's many people out there in the industry who claim to have certain knowledge, which is often based on not much substance. Everybody who knows me in the industry knows that they also get a very straightforward thing. I don't shy back to also tell certain brands that their product in the current stage is not a market fit for esports, or the business model to apply is not a fit. And we also sometimes go separate ways. I will not, sell snake oil, as I guess you would say in English. That's part one. That's our agency 2G Biz. We have our tech companies mostly headquartered in Belgrade. This is 2G Tech and ITX. ITX is standard IT, disconnected from gaming and esports, but 2G Tech is the company that builds all our assets, all our partners' assets. And what we do when we have free time is pretty much we look into the industry and see what technical solutions are missing. That's often things like automations, white label things, APIs. There's a lot of things that the industry as an infrastructure piece doesn't have, or often many agencies and IT companies offer for big money, which means only big companies can actually move into esports, and smaller companies are fed very insufficient products and infrastructure. So we're trying to fill those technological gaps and bring it to market. And then the third part is our platform. That's 2G Hub. First of all, of course, everything I just said about technology, 2G Hub is a showcase where all these technologies are in place in one form or another. And there's many clients that actually make use of it very openly, or also in joint ventures very discreetly, where they really just use our tech components to scale their ventures up and skip a lot of time. You have to understand everything we have done technologically is about over $1 million essentially put into technology, built over 2-3 years, and everybody who partners with us pretty much skips that time, right? So we're sort of a time machine forward for a lot of companies that decide in 2020, hey, I want to build, I don't know, for example, an international global esports league, right? They have the choice. Spend the money, develop for like 1, 2, 3 years, and then start in 2023, or they start literally within, let's say, a month from now. That's sometimes how fast it can go. We have built white labels and solutions within sometimes only 5 days. People came to me, said like, next week I have this big sponsor, we need to get things going, and we do things that quickly. But long story short, so 2G Hub is really the innovative piece in terms of B2C for the users. And that's where, how can I say, 2G Hub was never made to make money or anything like that, right? It's not the very traditional thing as you see many other platforms. It has 3 parts. One part is the tournament technology. It's state of the art. It's probably one of the best, if not the best, tournament platform out there, which, as I said, its technology is open for many clients to use. The second part, I call it, is information and aggregation. So if people understand esports, they understand it's an industry that is very divided by games. Every game has their own community, own things, by technology, by country, by languages, by publishers, by policies. Then governmental bodies will come in, jurisdictions, regulations. So I can give you 100 more examples, but it's like it's a big pie in a million little pieces. Now that is hard for business people to maneuver through. For the user, it's even worse. There's not a single place where you can go and you find literally everything esports. If you saw my LinkedIn profile, my only title that I have in the description is everything esports. And that's what we build into 2G Hub. So we have, for example, a tournament aggregator. You can imagine a bit like booking.com or Google Flights, right? You go over there and you find every flight from A to B. And you as a customer, you see the best price, the best connection, the best stops, etc. Now imagine that same logic just for esports, right? So every tournament, no matter what platform, tournament organizer, publisher, is listed there, and you can pick yourself Friday evening, the cup with the biggest prize pool and the highest chances to win, and you sort by your favorite game, favorite region, and so on. That's how we have started in 2018, and now we have built on top of it. So we have a news aggregator, every news outlet compressed in one, and we're going to launch an app on there as well. We have that for locations, a very big growing part right now. Okay, prior to Corona, it was a very big growing part of the industry. Now it's slowed down, of course, but there's many performance centers, web cafes, trucks, studios. And again, where do you find them? Google is the only place where you find them, or maybe your feed on social media, right? So long story short, in this first part of the platform, we put all this information together, all matches, all tournaments, all results, all news, all bets, all locations, and we continue. Whenever we see something that's where the entropy is high, like the chaos is high, we try to decrease that. That's part one. Part two, I already mentioned tournament platform. And part three is something we innovate Sometimes people describe it as the Facebook of gamers. I don't like that because I don't like Mark Zuckerberg, how he does business with people, how he treats data, how he treats people that want to access that data. Essentially, Zuckerberg started this tech stigma that, hey, I'm a platform, go make a group, make a page, make something, bring me your users. And once your users are on my platform, I'm going to charge you to reach them. That's the old data model, right? That's the only way people figured out how to monetize data. But I think it's really backwards. It's 2020. So we have a very open approach. Data is open accessible. So what's at the core of our social element is the so-called gamer's passport. If you would ask me, hey, Sebastian, what are you as a gamer? I would have to tell you probably 100 details, 50 links, and a few other things around it. Essentially, I don't even have a tweet that I could fit all my information, what it's me as a gamer, right? I have Facebook, I have YouTube, I have literally everything. And that doesn't even include my favorite food or how tall I am or that I have blonde hair, right? So whatever might also be relevant for gamers, because many people forget gamers are still human beings. We want to eat, we want to watch movies, we want to date. Like that's also a part of being a gamer. So in short, the gamer's passport compresses this all in one place. It becomes like your own little personal website, just that we give you the template for it. And then based on that, of course, you can befriend people, find people, chat with people. These modules are already there. And what we now build on top is tools to facilitate certain shortcomings in industry. So we have, for example, built a team finder, right? You looking for a team or a team trying to scout or recruit you. We got that. We are currently building a scrim finder. So for friendly matches, if you want to measure yourself against another team before you join a tournament where it's about thousands of dollars, right? So you don't want to fuck that up. You want to measure yourself first, right? How good or bad are you? And so that's all we do. And the next some layers is also job finding, sort of service finding. So you can say, like, for example, I am a commentator in Counter-Strike. How do people find you right now? Essentially, just word of mouth, Skype groups, Discord servers, or maybe they came across a tweet of yours. That's how the finding process goes in esports right now. And that's unacceptable. So on your gamer's passport in the future, there will be your rates, your services, your profession, and even people can find you.
That is awesome.
That's what we do in short, right? That's the shortest version I can really do because we really do a lot of things. We're not a very markety company, so you will not see a lot from us on LinkedIn and crazy PR announcement. We leave that to the companies that need that. Company that, for example, need to raise on Nasdaq and they need to bring out these big stories. We operate more in the backgrounds. People know us. There's a certain trust level. People that want to have real esports expert, they come to us. People that want to have affordable technology, they come to us, and we're doing very well. We're a non-invested esports startup, which is very profitable, and we're growing in a very organic pace without, for example, investors or any other third parties dictating what we do. That means we can stay very true to our core, keep serving the esports industry and all the little shortcomings that there are. And also for 2021, our goal is to, let's say, now we're catering to the big guys, right? Big holdings, big companies can come to us and they get their solutions. One of my goals as a person and as a former gamer, now I don't have time anymore for gaming myself, but as a former gamer, I call myself now, I want to make these technologies also accessible for very little money, if at all, right? So you, as a tournament organizer, getting access to an amazing technology that looks like it's your own, and it has all the functionalities. Until now, you had to feed your users into third-party platforms. They keep raising money on it. They take your data, they take your users. It's a very Zuckerbergian data model, right? And we turn this all around. We make this technology accessible for a few bucks, maybe a month, for example, as a subscription model. At the same time, you keep control of your users. We're never going to charge you to reach your tournament participants or some other nonsense, right? So that's how we do things very differently. And we reached a point where we can, as I said, replicate our technology even to the end user, to the grassroots, which is one of the most underserved parts of the esports industry. The top growth of esports is amazing, big numbers, big announcements, big investments. What we're going to keep forgetting is the grassroots scene, which built this industry. But now that we're big and we're mainstream, we kind of about where we came from, trying to take it back there, empower those people at the bottom. They're the next generation of entrepreneurs. They're the next generation of pro players. You need to give them tools to grow, for brands to discover them. I often say to brands, sometimes 500 micro influencers are better than that $1 million deal big influencer. And that's what you can say about a lot of grassroots things. But they need tools to be discovered and engaged with. That's what we do.
Brilliant. I'm amazed. You have top-notch work ethic, and also you're breaking new ground on the esports sector with your gamer's passport. I am a fan, as I am a gamer myself. Moving on, you also have great insights about esports in COVID-19. Could you tell us more about your future predictions and how the industry skyrocketed since the start of the pandemic?
Actually, due to COVID-19, I'm stuck in Belgrade. I was with my tech team here. I was in Belgrade, and the lockdown happened. So I happened to be here, and I'm still here. And due to not being allowed to travel without quarantine, I'm still in Belgrade. So I can tell you what happened in many countries, but definitely not in Germany on the grassroots. But COVID-19 and esports, it's a bit of a controversial thing. So if you're going to ask someone on LinkedIn, they're gonna tell you either, oh, it's amazing, COVID-19 was amazing for esports, and all the sports people and the betting people, casino people are coming into esports and want to have things. That is true, but esports in itself is not an industry in a coherent term. Esports is an industry that is a conglomerate of many industries, right? You have everything from events, online, offline, production, technologies, talents, agencies, influencers, marketing, PR. The list is endless, right? So when someone talks about esports like it's like a one word industry, it's not. So COVID-19 destroyed good parts of esports. Everyone who is in offline events, talents that are dependent on it, teams that are dependent on it, a lot of sponsors that are very analog product over digital product focused, all of those things are affected. All of those people are furloughed, laid off, looking for jobs, or trying to somehow find their, let's say, digital equivalent, or some of them even have to go back to their old jobs and give up their passion. Okay, that's one reality. So esports took a hit from COVID-19. However, part of the truth also lies in that, yes, esports is a thing that can be on the online part, on the digital part, be very resistant to things. Studies have shown that, like, even if a meteor would hit in 3 days, people would still play video games, right? No matter how bad things become, you're still at home and you consume entertainment pieces. And the younger generations now, gaming is just part of their life. Hyper casual on their phone or competitive, it doesn't matter, but gaming is part of their life. And even if they don't have something to eat, they would still play their game. That's one reality. And of course, when everybody is locked at home or limited in their movement, they still uh, uh, consume this content and what we have, and also increasingly maybe go the competitive route. And that's good news. That's one good news. So we have a solid audience that is available. We can very quickly shift our offline assets into digital, right? It takes maybe planning of a month or two to even have World Series with big events like 20,000 people in arena. It takes a month shifting 20 sponsors, communicated, and a few other things, and you have the whole thing digital, right? So we are very flexible. You can't say that about sports, right? What you're gonna do? You have 11 versus 11 players in football in an empty stadium, and even your players can't train with each other because they might infect each other. And we don't have these issues at all. The teams are mostly in a coherent house anyway, so they would be considered a family. So they would even be in the lockdown regulations if you take it like this, and that is a big advantage. And the entire digital side of esports is growing. We had a massive boost in esports. I can tell you, of course, I can't disclose names, but I had at least 5 leagues from European nations, where the prime league and the second league has been in touch with me for swapping to esports. We have done multiple products for European football clubs, some American clubs as well, and we still have ongoing conversations about that. Some are really slow, and they always used to be slow, but COVID-19 woke them up. They're like, oh my God, right? Our business is gone. No more licenses, no more media, no more sponsors, no more games. What do we do? And I say, like, okay, use your fandom, use your assets, and go esports, go gaming. And I'm not talking about necessarily the big competitive formats. Just having maybe Ronaldo play with a bunch of friends or for charity or anything like that. It keeps people entertained until the storm is over, right? So we have done amazing things in that, and it's not just during the pandemic doing these things. Now it also becomes more of an insurance. Because let's face it, this is only the first wave of the pandemic. I studied medicine, so I have also a medical opinion on this. I don't want to bore you with this, but I'm very much certain that this is not the last thing we hear from COVID-19. If you look in various countries, we're far from over, right? It's far uncertain when things come. Even things like the Olympics is something that I don't take for granted in 2021, right? There's still a lot of countries where you can't go into casinos, can't go into stadiums. So COVID-19 is not just an quick replacer, it becomes also an insurance. If that happens again, COVID, morbid, pop it doesn't matter how it's called in the future, you have a backup policy that whatever happens, you can continue and make also your sponsors happy. If you just know two things about sponsoring, you know that signing a sponsorship contract is easy. It's 5 minutes. Negotiating it and convincing a brand to work with you, that's sometimes 9 months, 12 months, 24 months, whatever. So what you want to do is, if sorry for the language, but if shit hits the fan, as we say in English, you want to have a backup plan. You want to tell your sponsor, yes, you cannot have that picture in the stadium, but look here, I put you on that asset and 50,000 young people see you, maybe even in a cooler framework, right? So you might get new sponsors, you keep your old ones, and you keep your fandom also loyal to your brand, anytime ready to go back to the stadium when, for example, governments allow it. And that is the positive side of COVID-19. And one last thing, I know I talk a lot, but so this is the bad truth and the good truth, but there's also one thing that I'm, as a, let's say, someone with also economical insights, the only thing that worries me about is, of course, also the purchase power of the consumer. So while we might be on an upswing in terms of people consuming our content and everything, but let's face it, if people are for too long unemployed or reduced, furloughed, or anything like that, we will see it. They buy less games, less in-game transactions, less any pay to insert random action. That's also a reality we face. So most people have their basic savings. Many European countries have healthcare system and social backups. But if you go to even first world countries like the US, if you're out of job, you're out of money. There's nothing that picks you up, maybe a local church, right? So we have also the financial reality we have to deal with, and we can't last forever, 6-9 months, and we're going to see also a decrease in consumer. No matter how big esports grows in the light of COVID-19, the consumers will spend less. And then, of course, the second thing is, if we, I predicted a recession for end of 2020, 2021, long before COVID-19 happened. If you go to my December article on LinkedIn with a YouTube video, I was actually talking about the recession and what happens in a recession to esports. Now I actually have to update that video and say what happens in a recession and COVID-19 on top. What happens with a recession that might be even exacerbated by a virus, and also the countermeasures that are happening now. For example, our federal banks printing money like it's candy. That means when we have a recession, it's not just going to be any recession, it's going to be the recession. We're talking about 2008 level, we're talking about Black Friday level, right? So, and that's very dangerous, because even from that, we're not immune. So we can be esports as much as we want. Our stadiums will never be empty, but if we have no one who spends on our product, we will notice the effects sooner or later. And that might be 6 months from now, 9 months from now, depending on which country you are, but we will have the second wave of impact of COVID-19 for esports. And I'm a bit afraid of that. That's why also I'm happy to be in a company that's on the digital side, technological side, and I deal mostly with the people who have so much money in peace times that their war chest in war times, like fighting a pandemic, is still big enough to innovate, to build and use this downtime, right? Names like Formula One, right? They can go for a digital asset, or Formula E, even if nobody comes to their races for probably 2-3 years before they run out of money. But there's many brands who can't. Sponsorship will decrease, which is one of the biggest fueling elements in esports, and we will notice it. So that will be our second wave of COVID-19 that many don't tell you about, but it will come.
Wonderful insights. Now, how about the rise of mobile esports? We want to hear more about its competitive elements and your future predictions on it.
Yeah, mobile. Oh, I've been talking about mobile. Actually, it's funny because I looked into an interview I gave in 2017 also about the rise of mobile esports, and back then we only had Oh, I forgot the from the publisher Super Evil Megacorp. They had the Arena of Valor. No, I forgot the game name already. But back then, that was literally the only somewhat competitive title we had in mobile esports, and a lot of people were. We just had the beginning of this discussion, like, is that even esports? Can it be competitive and everything? And back then, people were right because the publishers, they didn't really care about the competitive element. We didn't have elements such as spectating the game, facilitating and matchmaking, and having integrity within the game. These are the three pillars of esports. If you think about in terms of a title, right? You need to be able to watch it. You need to get people together, and it needs to be, let's say, similar starting conditions, which I guess you can call integrity or fair play, level playing field, whatever. That's the three pillars that a game has to have minimum to be considered an esports, and then the business and the community will decide if it ever becomes an esports title or will just be considered a game title or competitive game title. So that was 2017, and now fast forward in 2020, also me being involved in multiple mobile gaming companies, um, it's here. And I predicted, and everything I said also became true. The countries with the lesser infrastructure over the traditional Western countries, they're the ones booming. So everything that's South America, Africa, Middle East, the Indian, Pakistani subcontinent, even secluded areas such as Australia, who have a very bad connection to their neighbors, right? Because the closest thing to Australia is, I don't know, a Taiwan server or Singapore server, and it's horrible to be there with your connectivity, right? So all that are countries and regions where mobile gaming is booming for simple reasons. It was never a console country to begin with. PCs is a luxury because it's still an expensive hardware piece to have. But smartphones, they get thrown after you for an egg and an apple, we say in German, right? So for cents on the dollar, pretty much. And the technology is so good that you can have good games and everything. It's the same with the infrastructure. Land internet, good luck finding that in India on a reliable way. However, your 4G is in place no matter on which mountain you are. So that's the infrastructure from which we have the basics on. And you also have to understand that in these countries, the sponsors and the brands are distributed along those lines. The most powerful brands in those countries are mostly the fintech companies, those who control all transactions, and the mobile providers or similar internet providers. These are almost, in some cases, more powerful than the local government. So these are also the ones that fuel the mobile development by providing the hardware and the software and the distribution, and they also work directly with the publishers, and that is an effect that will just increase. So if you want to say it short, mobile gaming is here to stay. It will be a very southern hemisphere heavy industry, but also the rest of the world, right? You're not always at your PC. So even if you wait for a bus, you can still play competitively whatever other game. So it will also gradually be in the northern hemisphere more and more relevant. It's here to stay. Many businesses focuses on it right now. Many apps integrated. These brands that I just mentioned, they see it as a marketing niche for themselves, right? What's the best way to sell your internet brand or your wallet or your service? Integrate tournament functionality into your app. That's how you drive customer acquisition, right? They would have never downloaded your payment app if there wasn't a tournament functionality on it or anything like that. But since you combine these things, it's just deals made in heaven, and that's happening right now all over the world, and it's just growing. I can't put percentage on it, but the growth is amazing.
Now, lastly, what are the trends that have occurred for esports since the COVID-19?
Well, COVID-19, as I said, it's all digital. So one trend is that, yeah, offline assets into digital assets in esports, and then the non-endemic brands going into esports as an alternative to sports. Um, until now, it was us that tried to convince them it's the right thing. I said I had conversations with big sports companies, leagues, whatsoever, and it always felt like I'm the guy in the door trying to sell them a vacuum cleaner. Now this whole thing is turned around. Now all of a sudden they're standing in my door and they're asking if they can have a seat at the table, and how and what is the best way, right? So that is the 180 degrees that COVID-19 has done. But with, as said, within esports, it's just all digital and everybody is trying to get by, and we hope to return and insert our offline events and offline assets, cafes and performance centers and whatnot. A lot of people crave to get back into it. But yeah, the digital part is growing, and of course a lot of sponsors. Those who are not impacted by COVID-19 in terms of their marketing budget, they need to look into new funnels. And guess what? Esports is definitely one of the easiest to implement. It's There's sports in esports, even though I would argue about the definitions, but there is sports in esports, and so it's also very, I don't know, familiar, right? It's much easier for a football sponsor to go into esports than in maybe any other area. The same with betting guys, for example, right? They had their sports offering already. They often bought into an esports offering. So what's best to do to just, focus on that other leg your table is standing on right now, while the other one is weak. So that's the natural development we have right now during COVID-19. I don't think anything else will happen. There will not be some emergence of new technology. It's just shifting of digital and analog assets versus a shifting of marketing budgets. And the only interesting thing, and this is I can't answer to you, what remains after COVID-19? How much sticks? Right now this is like the shotgun principle. Let's shoot 20 times and let's see who screams what we hit. But what sticks? That's the question. There will be, of course, a lot of things that will be retracted from esports after things settle down. Let's say 2021. Let's say, for example, Olympics come back, right? Of course, a lot of marketing budget goes into these traditional assets. But I also believe, I don't know, maybe 30%, 40% they stay permanent sponsors. For example, in terms of marketing budget in esports, because they were surprised by how good it goes. And also when it comes to companies that have built an additional leg to their table they stand on, because they had to, right? Because their table was, going with the wind, because you shot one leg away and then all of a sudden was not such a stable construct anymore. So I think they will remain in esports just because they want to be ready for the future. And they also see that there is a financial opportunity in it, even though, I mean, let's face it, esports is not a big money industry. Everybody who comes to esports and thinks they're going to make big money are going to send them back for a reality check and invite them again. We're still very organic, we're still very humble, but it is a backup. You can make money in esports if you do it right, and that will grow. Year over year, we have a very consistent growth, and you can tell at what point we're going to hit the mark where we're going to be relevant to numbers like from, let's say, gambling or sports or anything like that. For that reason, I believe a lot of brands will stay, and that's good. That's good for us. That's the win we can take out of COVID-19, besides all the hits we had to take.
That is fantastic, Sebastian. I love how raw and how down to earth you are. You have shared so much with us today, and I think your insights are gold, and I really appreciate your time.
Thank you very much. Giving information to other people is one of my passions. I believe that should come for free if you want to thrive as an esports industry. That's why, for example, my LinkedIn, my email is always open to people. I will not send you a consulting contract before you get an answer. I give you the answer because you're very welcome in esports, whatever angle you're coming from. And I also want to prevent you doing from mistakes. The good thing of being of generation 1, 1.5, or 1.2, 2.0 is we did so many mistakes, and I hate to see other people doing it. So the best thing you can do when entering esports, no matter what industry you're coming from, is talk to someone you can trust, someone who has a portfolio that ranges back many years, and listen to them. Don't repeat the mistakes. Save that money and spend it on something really cool. And there's a lot of cool things we can do in esports.
You're amazing, Sebastian, and I would also like to commend you for your bluntness. I think we need more people like you on this planet Earth.
That's what people tell me, but as I said, I stick to myself. That's the downside of being a gamer, being very introverted. I would love to be like that person that goes Gary Vee style on LinkedIn, and I tell you every day about some crazy pumped up news and how hypey things are. As I said, I rather stick to my close network of people that trust me and know me, and these people recommend and also what we can do. And as I said, I'm also not shying back of saying I don't know. For example, I'm many years out of broadcasting. I built an esports TV channel in Russia. I have good expertise. Am I an expert in 2020? No, but I have a good network of people that can definitely tell you everything about everything from linear to satellite broadcasts and content things around it. So people need to know what they can and cannot do, and we need to work together. I truly believe that collaboration over competition is the way to go in esports, because we're so small. and fragile still. Besides what Forbes tell you maybe or something like that, but we are a very tiny industry, but we're growing. And let's make the child of esports like a very colorful one and a solid one. Let's not do these teenager mistakes that many teenagers do. We can do it very solid. That's the only thing I'm really working for. That's why I don't need to crazy sell myself. I'm trying to sell quality, and I'm trying to share information that on many paid also conferences also you will never hear, because there's always a product agenda or anything else. I mean, who talks bad about an industry they try to sell a product in, right? But I go more by the logic that I rather tell someone the truth and they stick with the truth rather than them burning their fingers on the industry. The average brand that burned their fingers, for example, with a bad consultant, with a bad company, they probably take a pause of like 2-3 years before they re-enter the esports industry. And we lost them for 2-3 years. So let's face it, let's go with the truth from day one, not make the mistakes, and have long-term development.
And that is all for myself and Sebastian. We'd love to hear how you found this interview, so share your thoughts in the comments below.